All right, my friends, get ready to free your mind because it's showtime. J.R. Dukes at your service. Appreciate all my free-minded friends joining me today. Folks, we have to talk about Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin. Have you heard about this man? Unfortunately for him, he apparently has had a cancer diagnosis. He apparently suffers from prostate cancer. He is an older gentleman. He is the Secretary of Defense, and he is in line to the presidency of the United States. And unfortunately, it has came out that he has had a severe infection, a complication, if you will, of a recent prostate surgery. And as a result, he was in the hospital in intensive care for many days. Now, the problem with this is he is the Secretary of Defense. He is the president's right-hand man. He's the linchpin between the President of the United States and access to our armed forces. So make sure you let that sink in. Nobody knew where he was. Nobody knew that he's sick. The President admitted he did not even know he was in the hospital to approximately January 5th. He initially went in for surgery, I believe it was December 22nd. So a lot of concerning information here. I have a video we're going to watch together, and we will talk about this and why this is such a problem. So without further ado, here we go.
Look at the scandal right now with the Secretary of Defense. I represent thousands of troops from Fort Drum, the 10th Mountain Division, who are deployed in the Middle East right now. It is unacceptable that you have a Secretary of Defense who is not transparent with the White House. So I'm looking forward to being active on that issue to deliver accountability and transparency, and I called for his resignation.
Okay, moments ago right here on Fox and Friends, another member of Congress calling on Secretary Austin to resign as the administration faces growing scrutiny over its transparency or lack of it on hospitalization. We didn't know why he went in the hospital. It was all a secret.
And critics also pushing back on the Pentagon's response, asking, is removing cancer really an elective surgery? America's Newsroom co-anchor and former White House Press Secretary Dana Perina joins us now. Dana, you heard Elise Stefanik saying he needs to resign, he needs to be fired. What do you think?
I think that this should have been Biden's decision immediately. I don't think that, like, the chief of staff at the Department of Defense, whose responsibility it was to alert everyone, she has called for a 30-day review. We don't need a 30-day review. We have 30-second review. And, this is and also, I hate group work. And this chief of staff at the White House has now told every cabinet secretary that they have to produce a memo by January 12th to say, this is our chain of command. This is how we. And none of that was necessary to do all this extra work. There was one person who made a terrible decision. I wish Secretary Austin well. I think we all do. And I could understand how the surgery, you might want to keep that quiet. Yeah. You don't have to tell America, but you do have to tell the commander-in-chief. And what I'm concerned about a little bit is that this turns into a partisan thing, right? That they think, oh, the Republicans are just calling for him to resign. The initial pushback was also from Democrats, especially those on Capitol Hill. If you are on the Senate Armed Services Committee, and you're the chairman, and there's a problem, Lloyd Austin is the sixth in line for the presidency. You're supposed to be notified. So I think all of those things need to happen. But there's one other thing. The press really can't stand it when there is a lack of transparency. Think about Hillary Clinton's emails. The New York Times was relentless, went after her over and over again. Right. So we'll have to see if the media sticks with this story. I think for Biden's own good and for the good of the military, as Elise Stefanik was saying, there are troops out there saying, I could never get away with that. He had a bad lack of judgment, and that lack of judgment is unacceptable. Thank you for your service. We appreciate it.
Well, our White House correspondent yesterday really grilled.
Folks, I want to make sure you definitely grasp exactly how serious this is. Not only did he disappear and no one knew about it, his right-hand person to the secretary, if you will, the person right underneath Lloyd, was on vacation herself. I believe she was in Puerto Rico, or she was in the Dominican Republic, something in the Caribbean. She did not even know what was going on with the Secretary of Defense. So imagine that. The president doesn't know that his Secretary of Defense is out of pocket. Apparently, the President of the United States is not keeping in touch with the person that he has to talk to should he need to use the military for some reason. And the person that Lloyd, the Secretary of Defense, delegates responsibilities to is also on vacation and did not bother to return to the United States to carry out the duties that needed to be carried out. It's extremely, extremely troubling. How is this possible in our country that the chain of command apparently was broken? It was non-existent when you get right down to it. Now, listen, I fully understand the reason for privacy. I understand nobody wants to be known that they're having cancer treatment, that they have a prostate problem, that they're having prostate surgery. We all cherish our privacy. However, when you're in a government trusted high position like the Secretary of Defense is, your privacy is second to the American people. Your number one job at that point is taking care of our country, making sure our people are safe. And that is not what Secretary Austin did. He made a terrible judgment. I'm sure he's a great man. I wish him well. I wish him a speedy recovery. But, sir, you should step down. You should resign. You have to be held accountable. There's just no room. There's no excuse for this type of nonsense. And I really hope that it's corrected.
He sure did.
John Kirby, because it's kind of like, how can we trust this administration? The White House knew 5 days before Joe Biden did. What else are they not telling the president?
felt like Kirby and the spokesperson at DOD, whose name I can't remember, they are dealing with a bad set of facts, and they are not trying to spin it that much. They
can't.
Like, we get it.
Yeah.
It's bad. And there is, however, only one person who can actually deal with it, and that is Biden, and he's just chosen not to.
I mean, he was under general anesthesia. He was knocked out, and nobody knew. So that's a problem. All right, what's coming up on your
Folks,
show?
for those of you who may not be aware, in our country, we have what's called a chain of command, chain of succession, if you will. And essentially what happens is if something, God forbid, happens to the President of the United States, you have to have a way that the order, that the military, that whatever is going on is handled by other people that's underneath the president. In this case, the Secretary of Defense is a very important cabinet member. It's a very important secretary. Should the president have a problem, should the president himself be sick and not able to carry out his duties, let's take a look here at the line of succession right here as I'm pulling it off of Wikipedia. Obviously, right underneath the president, as you can see, is the vice president, Kamala Harris. God forbid that she should ever assume the role of president. Underneath her, number 2 in command, is Mike Johnson, who is currently the Speaker of the House. Then you have someone called the Speaker Pro Tem of the Senate. And then it goes to the Secretary of State, which is currently Anthony Blinken. We see him on TV all the time. And then number 5 is the Secretary of the Treasury. And then finally, number 6 is Lloyd Austin. This is who we're talking about right here. Mr. Lloyd Austin. Here's his photo. His birthday is August 8th, 53. I believe he's 69, 70. He is 70 years old. That's right. So he is up there a little bit in age. Obviously, we all have problems as our life goes on. I know sickness is part of life, but he clearly did not put our country first. And that is the problem. It's his judgment, the judgment of the president. I want to emphasize, I truly, truly want to see the Secretary of Defense heal. I want to see him do well. I'm going to put him on my personal prayer list. I want him to make a full recovery. But the problem is, he did what he did. It was a serious lack of judgment. It put all of us in peril. It put all of us in a serious potential situation. And that's flat unacceptable. Again, I don't want to come across as mean. That has nothing to do with this. It has to do with responsibility. Privacy, I'm sorry, Secretary. Privacy is not something that you get to keep when you're in that type of position, and you need to understand that on the front end. Unfortunately, you should be fired. You should have been fired immediately. Unfortunately, President Joe Biden, as we all know, is a very feckless and weak leader. He's not able to do anything. I don't know who's controlling our government, but it is definitely not President Joe Biden. And obviously, it's not Lloyd Austin. Can you imagine that? The President of the United States does not even know his own Secretary of Defense is out of pocket. Most presidents talk to their Secretary of Defense regularly, if not daily. Yet apparently that's not the case with Joe Biden, because he admitted that he had not talked to him or become aware of this particular situation till January 5th. So there was, what, a week or two in between the time he went into the hospital for his cancer surgery and before the time the president found out on January 5th. This is seriously a problem. It's really not a partisan issue. It's a security issue, and we need to take it as such. Let me know if you agree with me. Put in the comments below. Do you believe this is a whole lot to do about nothing, or do you see this as a serious issue the way that I do? Let me know. I'm always interested in your comments. If you haven't done so already, please hit the thumbs up button. You might as well subscribe if you're still with me. That way you know when new material, new videos, and whatnot come out. I always appreciate you taking time to see what I have to say and to join in on our conversation today. Well, my friends, always keep that free mind. Never give up. And until next time, I am J.R. Dukes.